The sun had set long ago. I was a university student, sitting up in bed with a textbook in my lap, studying for a test. It was getting harder and harder to concentrate. The darker it got, the more I felt like someone was watching me. I raised my head, looked around. I rented my own flat, extremely tiny but cheap. I knew I was alone, yet the feeling I had said otherwise. From the bed, I could see both the kitchen nook and the front door. What I couldn't see was the short hallway that led from the small foyer to the bathroom. As I stared into that foyer, the unsettling feeling grew stronger. The space between the front door and my bedroom was dim, lit only by the dregs of light from the lamp above my bed. I felt more and more convinced that something could be lurking in that dark hallway, just out of view. I glanced down at the biology textbook in my lap. I was supposed to be cultivating a logical mind. I was on my way to becoming a scientist. I knew the difference between reality and my imagination running wild. Yet I could picture it so well. A sudden, heavy breath of someone I couldn't see behind the wall that obscured the hallway. A sense of motion deep in the dark. A leg swinging into view. No, a hoof. A cloven hoof at the end of a fur-covered leg. The dark felt darker. The silence grew thicker. As the seconds trickled by, the image in my head felt less like a trick of the mind and more like a certainty. Something was in that hallway, and it was only a matter of time before it would come out and get me. Welcome to Odd Little Tales, an ongoing project that examines the strange and the unusual through the eyes of a skeptic. While I approach these stories from a skeptical point of view, I have no wish to dismiss or mock them. Something happened. Something was the spark that brought them to life. I seek to understand these strange experiences, to, perhaps, discover even stranger truths buried within them. So please, make yourself comfortable and join me as I investigate this odd little tale. Some places just feel wrong. As soon as you step into them, you tense up and look around. The hairs on the back of your neck may stand up. You feel the need to look over your shoulder again and again. You can't shake the feeling that something is there with you, watching, waiting. Yet nothing is there. The room is empty. Nothing hides in that dark corner or peeks out through the gap between the closet doors. The shadows are just shadows. Why do certain places evoke these feelings of anxiety and dread in us? What is it about them that affects us in such a profound and unsettling way? When dealing with eerie feelings and bad vibes, thoughts of the paranormal often begin to creep in. If we can't see the cause, then it must be something invisible. If it's something we can neither see nor hear, then maybe it's something paranormal. Maybe, or maybe not. Let's dig into it and see if we can drag this lurker in my hallway into the light. Two things are worth noting about my creepy experience. One, these were recurring, persistent feelings of dread, focused on this one location. The rest of the apartment was fine. Two, this location had a fuse box in it, right next to the front door, that was about 60 years old. If you're familiar with common ghost hunting methods and concepts, you may already be thinking high EMFs. Investigators of ghostly phenomena often measure electromagnetic fields, or EMFs, during the course of their investigations. These fields are invisible, and at low everyday levels, practically undetectable by our own senses, but they are physical, measurable phenomena. An EMF is a combination of an electric field and a magnetic field that exist together and affect each other through the electric charges that generate them. If the electric field changes, so does the magnetic one, and vice versa. The term EMF covers a broad range of phenomena, both natural and artificial. Anything that requires electricity to function, such as the device you're using to watch this video, generates its own field. Any kind of wireless communication, including Wi-Fi, mobile phones, and the signals used by radio and TV, operate on electromagnetism, as do X-rays and MRI scanners. Light is electromagnetic radiation. In short, electromagnetic fields are everywhere. Even we humans generate them. Much of the signaling between the cells in our hearts, brains, and muscles is electric. Our bodies therefore generate EMFs of our own, although of an extremely low frequency compared to our microwave ovens and hair dryers. So what do EMFs have to do with ghostly investigations? According to some popular paranormal theories, ghosts are either made of energy or require energy in order to manifest in our world. Electromagnetic fields are basically measurable pockets of energy that could theoretically be harvested and used by these entities. A high, otherwise unexplainable EMF reading could therefore indicate paranormal activity. It is worth noting that none of these paranormal theories have been proven scientifically. They're based on speculation and personal experience, but EMF readings do serve another purpose. They can help identify unusually high EMFs inside a home that's supposedly haunted. Some people claim to be sensitive to electromagnetic fields. The reported symptoms vary from person to person and include a wide range of ill effects, including headaches, fatigue, stress, issues with sleep, skin problems, aching muscles, depression, and anxiety. The fuse box in my apartment must have had an EMF of its own, possibly a strong one. I did feel anxious about something in that area, but was it causation, or simply correlation? It seems plausible. If our bodies are able to generate EMFs, it isn't such a stretch to think they might be affected by other EMFs as well. And yes, certain frequencies and intensities of EMF do have an effect on us. Frequencies below 10 MHz may cause a tingling sensation, while frequencies above 100 kHz may heat up tissues. Both national and international regulations and recommendations exist to limit exposure at these frequencies, for example by requiring permits for constructing cell phone towers. However, there are a couple of issues with this explanation. First off, electromagnetic fields don't extend far from their source. At a distance of 30 centimeters or 1 foot, the field's intensity drops significantly. No matter how intense an EMF the fuse box emitted, it couldn't reach me on the bed in the next room. Second, the reported effects of long-term exposure to EMFs that fall within the regulated levels are mostly anecdotal and scientifically unproven. No official medical diagnosis exists for a sensitivity to electromagnetic fields, and several double-blind studies have failed to prove any correlation between EMF exposure and reported ill effects. It seems something else is causing these symptoms. What has been scientifically documented, however, is the effect that low-frequency sounds have on us. Sound is basically a wave that travels through a medium, often air in our case. Frequency measures how quickly a sound wave vibrates per second. The higher the frequency, the higher pitched it sounds to our ears. Humans are said to hear frequencies between 20 and 20,000 Hz, although this can vary greatly from person to person. Low-frequency sounds fall between 10 to 200 Hz. We can't hear the sounds at the lowest end of that range with our ears, but we can perceive them as vibrations in our body. Sounds in this range are known to cause ill effects in humans, such as headaches, dizziness, nausea, sleep disruptions, anxiety, and depression. Much of that sounds familiar, doesn't it? It's interesting to note that many of those who claim to be sensitive to EMFs often report being sensitive to sounds and noise as well. Just a bit of speculation on my part, but it did stick out to me. Sound with such a low frequency that it can't be heard by human ears is called infrasound. This is generally considered to be 20 Hz or less. Infrasound is produced by a number of natural sources, such as earthquakes and avalanches, volcanoes, and severe weather. They're also produced by certain animals, like elephants, alligators, and the roar of a tiger. Many of these are dangerous to humans, and, interestingly enough, infrasound has been shown to cause feelings of fear and dread in humans. Some scientists have suggested that infrasound may be the cause of reported paranormal experiences. Infrasound does, after all, cause unnerving effects in the human body with no visible or audible cause. These are real vibrations we notice in our bodies as bad vibes, only their source is not some paranormal entity. The cause is simply something physical in our environment. Sounds with frequencies of 20 Hz or less don't quite fit my case. The so-called mains hum, or the hum coming from an alternating current, would be twice the frequency of the electricity, in my case 100 Hz. In a fuse box as old as the one in my apartment, it is feasible that age had loosened some components enough to make them vibrate, but the frequency would likely have matched the alternating current it handled, 50 Hz instead of 20 or less. Still, both 50 and 100 Hz are well within the low frequency range of 10 to 200 Hz that we humans find unpleasant. The location of the box, right next to the apartment's only exit, may also have been a contributing factor, along with the layout of the apartment. We humans tend to have some shared requirements of what we consider a safe space. It needs to be secure, protected from danger, while also offering a clear view of our surroundings to be sure no threats are drawing near. There is an evolutionary aspect to this preference. Those who were instinctively drawn to such safe places, and who were on high alert in places that were not as safe, tended to survive long enough to pass on that preference to the next generation. My apartment was small and secure, but that dark hallway was hidden behind a wall. I couldn't see what was there. I couldn't be sure nothing was lurking in those shadows. Worse yet, that hallway was located between me and the only exit. According to my instincts, my escape route was compromised. And I was alone. We humans are a social species. We rely on others not just for companionship, but for aid and vigilance in times of danger. When something in our environment unnerves us, it leads to increased stress and tension when we are alone. All those tasks that should be divided among a group of people, we have to do it all ourselves. Should something go wrong, we're on our own. No one will come to our aid. The final contributing factor to consider is the brain's confirmation bias. This is the term for our tendency to interpret, recall, and favor information that supports our existing beliefs. We prefer information that confirms what we already think. In previous videos, I've described how the brain prioritizes consistency when it decides how to interpret signals from our senses, like our eyes and ears. Something similar also happens with our thoughts and beliefs. Ambiguity and contradictory ideas take time and energy to process, so our efficient, consistent brains would prefer to simply eliminate ambiguity and contradiction. Facing something that clashes with existing values may also cause emotional distress, and the brain doesn't want to deal with all that unless it has to. It's easier and safer to make new facts conform to existing beliefs, rather than the other way around. This tendency may preserve energy and stability, but when it's allowed to run freely without checks and balances, it can result in prejudice, obsessive-compulsive behavior, and self-sabotaging thoughts. To make matters worse, confirmation bias is exacerbated when we're anxious or afraid. After that mental image arrived in my brain of something malicious lurking in the hallway, I simply kept reaching for that thought again and again until it became the first thing that would pop into my head whenever those creepy feelings made themselves known. So, in summary, the low-frequency humming of the fuse box, the unseen hallway in the dark, the location of them both between me and my only exit, the fact that I was alone, the confirmation bias of the brain, all these factors contributed to that creepy, unsettling feeling. Much ado about nothing, one might say, yet they were all normal, natural responses to cues in my environment. It's been 20 years since I lived in that tiny apartment, but the memory of that dark hallway lingers on. It speaks to the intensity of those unsettling feelings and the profound effect they can have on one's psyche. We may be creatures that pride ourselves on logic and reason, but our animal instincts still affect us, sometimes in surprising ways. The better we understand them, the better we understand ourselves. It isn't our feelings and instincts that define us, after all. It's how we choose to handle them. Thank you for listening to this odd little tale. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe for more odd tales in the future. Until next time, mind your surroundings.